Hi everyone, and thank you for joining me today. So starting off with what we have in front of us, we have an 11 by 14 size canvas, a towel for our brushes, a fan towards our left. We are going to be working in layers, so we need a fan or a hair dryer if you have an outlet nearby to help the process go by a lot smoother. Next, we have our water, our brushes. These are the same brushes we use for all our classes. We have our large background brush, our round tip brush that comes to a point, and our square brush, and finally our detail brush, our liner brush that comes to a point, very fine. Okay, so these are the brushes that we're going to be using today. Next we have our paints. We're starting with white, black, blue, aqua green, red, and brown. So these are the colors we're using today. If you don't have aqua green, you can just use baby blue by mixing a little bit of blue with white. And that way you get that light color. So I want you guys to take something into consideration. This paint is very sticky. So we want to make sure that we can work on the amount of water that we're adding towards our paint. Okay, so see, it's kind of like Dairy Queen ice cream. So we want to make sure we get a little bit of water, we get it nice and smooth. One, so we don't waste a lot of paint, and two, just to make the process flow a little bit smoother. You don't want to get frustrated when you're working with it, and you don't want to keep applying water over and over again. You just want it to be nice and smooth when you're applying it around. So again, you don't get frustrated and you don't waste a lot of paint. So we're going to be starting off today with our large background brush, picking up a little bit of water, and we're going to be mixing it to the side of our paint. Make sure that your paint is very well blended into that background. Make sure that your water is very much blended into that paint so that we get it nice and smooth. We want it to be nice and creamy, sort of like sour cream, not like toothpaste. So make sure that you squeeze that brush, you get all that water out to make it nice and creamy. Next, we're going to pick up a little bit of blue. Okay, so we're going to mix that white into the corner of the blue to lighten it up a little bit. And I like to pick up a little bit of that light blue and add enough water to make it nice and creamy, and we are going to be adding that towards the back of our canvas. So it's going to be our background. We're going to cut our canvas in half. That's where our guitar is going to be. We're going to start right around the bottom, a little bit more towards the right since our guitar is going to be curving. Our line is going to go into the right a little bit from the half of our canvas towards the right, and we're going to start to curve the shape of our guitar. So again, we're curving up. The bottom curve is going to be a little bit darker, and we're going to go above half of our canvas. We are going to be filling in the left side with that blue. You're going to begin to curve it up. The small curve is going to be a little bit smaller, the one on top, and it's going to also curve a little bit towards our right. So we started off on the right, curved towards the left, dipped into the right, then we curved out to the left again, and then came in for the top of our guitar towards the right. So we're going to begin to fill in those colors. We're going to begin to fill in with that blue first, all of our left side. While we're painting in the left side, you want to watch the amount of water that you add to your paint. If you add too much water, your paint is going to be very see-through and runny. If you don't add enough, it's going to be very sticky and you're going to waste a lot of paint. So you want to go in and apply a mid-level amount of water. And you also want to watch your pressure, okay? If you noticed my paint was getting a little bit scratchy, that is usually a sign that you need a little bit more water. Um, and if you see that there's a lot of lines, that means I'm pushing too hard and I'm pushing the paint out. So relax your pressure and pull that up slowly so that we can get a blended look. Next, we're going to be picking up our brush, adding a little bit of water, and this time we're going to pick up a little bit of aqua green. we're going to start to blend it right in that midline where the white starts to transfer into the blue, just so that it looks a little bit more cohesive and blended together, as if it's transitioning from that dark blue to that aqua green. You could go in there and add just a little bit more blue. Make sure that you squeeze all the water out of your brush. You don't want to have a little accident on your canvas, and then end up getting frustrated because your water went everywhere. So we're going to again go up and down. We're going to start adding more aqua green towards our left. We're going to be moving from right to left, releasing our pressure so we don't press too hard and we get a nice blended look. And we're going to go lighter and lighter as we start to merge to our left. We're going to go aqua green. We're going to start adding more white. And we're going to create a very nice gradient transitioning from that dark blue to a very pale blue. As I mentioned before, we are going to begin to add a little bit more white. Again, release your pressure. When we're blending, you always want to move a color ahead and then a couple of steps back. Move the color ahead and then a couple of steps back. That way the gradient looks a little bit more of like a natural occurrence. It looks like it's naturally blending and you don't see where the light and the dark color begin or end. So again, we're going to go back in there, a little bit more water, pick up a little bit more white, add it to the aqua green until we get very pale towards our left. When you are working on adding the gradient to the left side of your canvas, pay attention to how much pressure you add. Usually when you press really hard, you tend to push the paint out of the sides of your brush and you tend to leave lines behind. If you're looking to get more of like a softer faded look like mine, nice and gradient, um, go ahead and release your pressure. Try pressing a little bit lighter and practice with that. Eventually, practice makes perfect, and your blending will be flawless before you know it. Next, we're going to begin to pick up a little bit more water, wash off your brush from that blue, and we're going to pick up a little bit of brown. Add a little bit of water to your brown, make sure that it's nice and soft, nice and creamy so that the application isn't so difficult on your canvas. You don't scratch your paint and you don't waste a lot of paint. So you want it to be nice and creamy. We're still using our background brush. Okay, and you want to get that very well blended. We're going to begin to color in our guitar. So we're going to start off on the right hand side and we're going to begin to work our way from the right towards the left. Okay, we're going to go in there and we're going to softly fill that in. Make sure again that you pay attention to your thickness of paint, your consistency of paint. You want to make sure that it's nice and creamy and soft as you're applying it. And again, we're going from left to right and we're going to curve it on the left side once we get to that section. Again, up and down. At first, you're trying to get your paint on there. After a while, you're trying to just smooth it out, just so it looks equally as smooth as our background. And you're going to keep adding water if you run out of water. You're going to keep adding paint if your water and your paint get too watery. Add a little bit more paint. If it's still too sticky, add a little bit more water. And you're going to remember to periodically go hydrate your brush, come back, pick up a little bit more paint. And I'm going over my paint. If you notice, it's starting to get softer, because at first I started applying a lot of pressure as I was pushing up and down, see, to get the paint on there. That's why you see all those lines. Then I start to go over it very soft. I'm barely even holding my brush, dragging it over the top, letting the hairs even out those lines. And I'm starting to get that faded look I was telling you about. If you want to add a little bit of a highlight, if it's a little too dark and you want to get it a little bit lighter, you can go in there and add a little bit of white. And that way you have that light sandy guitar color we're looking for. All right, so we're just going to keep this up, editing the sides of our guitar. If you want to straighten them up, if you want to make your guitar chunkier, go ahead and do that. And we're going to work our way from our right to our left using that brown, using that white. As you start to merge a little bit towards the left, you start to curve your brush strokes to go with the shape of the guitar. So you keep them straight on the right, you start to curve them as you start to work more towards your left, getting a little bit darker towards the edges as you work your way towards your left. If you notice, it's already starting to get a little bit darker. You can even apply a little bit of red to that brown to make it a little bit more of a violin color. I don't believe that red is a color in this palette, but if you want to go for more of a violin color, you could add just a little bit more red. If not, continue to add that brown, make it a little bit darker. And again, we're continuing to work our way all the way towards the left, shaping our guitar. The top curve is a little bit smaller, the bottom curve is a little bit larger, and we bring it down into the right or up into the right when you start to bend in the guitar edges. Using the same brush, as we start to merge our way towards our left, we're going to pick up a little bit of black, and we're just going to mix that into our brown a little bit so we can get a darker chocolate brown. So as you noticed, I'm just picking up a little bit of a drop, mixing it into my brown. Remember to pick up a little bit of water to make sure it's nice and soft and creamy. And we're going to come in and we're going to begin to shape the edges of our guitar with this dark brown. If you notice, when you're trying to do a faded look, you tend to draw in your darker color and you go a little bit into your lighter look just to make sure that it is well blended and that the line isn't so rigid. Okay, so we're going to keep that up. We're going to go back down. We're starting to shape our guitar. There we go. And now we're trying to leave an outline outside of our guitar. I'm also going to fix my curve of my guitar here. The right side on top seems to be a little bit too straight. It needs to be a little bit rounder. So I'm going to start off at the bottom. I'm going to curve it towards the top, and I'm going to give it a little bit more of a shape. Okay, again, the bottom is larger, the top is smaller, but they're both very curved. So I came in, I'm fixing that curve, and I'm continuing to do that with my dark brown. I'm coming in between the light color and the dark color, like I mentioned before, just so that it goes in with the gradient. Okay, when you do a gradient, when you do a blending effect, you always go back and forth from your light to your dark as you're increasing your highlight or you're increasing your shadow. And that is so that you don't see those separations of colors, light brown, then darker brown. Instead, it looks like it's fading from a light brown to a darker brown. And again, that comes when you go back and forth. It comes in when you're going very soft with your brush to create that soft, powdery, blended look. And if you can tell, see, mine is already starting to look kind of blended. It's starting to look kind of vibrant, kind of soft. Um, so yeah, that's what you do. You add a little bit of that dark black to your brown and continue working on that before we move on. Next, we're going to begin to add a little bit more black to our brown, and we're going to start to Fade that dark brown from the left to the right. Again, we're straightening out the shape of our guitar, making sure that we like the shape of it. I'm starting to work in that dark brown, and I'm gonna little by little fade it into my right with less pressure, just kind of scratching whatever paint is left over on the hairs of my brush very lightly into the right of the guitar. Remember, we do want the lightest towards the right and the darkest part towards the center, which would be center left. Next, we're going to be using our medium square brush. We're going to be making our outline on the left-hand side of our guitar. That's going to be a highlight against the darker turquoise, and it's going to also form an outline to separate the darkness from the aqua green at the end. It's really going to create personality as well. It's going to make our dark brown really stand out because our dark brown and our white are such extreme colors. You know, when you put a light color right next to a really dark color, they both really stand out, right? So that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to give it more depth, more richness by creating this outline with this white all the way down on our left hand side of our guitar from the top to the bottom. Next, we're going to use the same brush, wash it off, and we're going to be picking up a little bit of black. We're going to come into the lower half of our guitar, and right in the lower middle, we're going to create the base that holds our strings in place. So we're just going to come in with our square brush. We're going to skip about 4 fingers from the bottom up, and right above that, we're going to come in from our left to our right, create a little bit of a curve. Okay, we want to curve it, and we are still going to leave some space below. You can make it a little bit thicker, but that's what we're going to be working on next. Again, very lightly. Remember to pick up some water. We want to create that base that holds the strings to the guitar. Next, we're going to draw in the circle where our the hole is located in our guitar. We're going to put our hands about maybe 4 fingers, maybe a hand's worth of space from the top down, right where our hand ends. That's where we're going to want to start our half circle. Okay, so you're going to come in starting on the right hand side, right beneath where your 4 fingers would be. If you have a small hand, try doing maybe like a hand and a half. You want to have it in the midpoint of your top arch of your guitar. And we're going to come in and we're just going to begin to make a half circle. And we are going to fill that in with black. Again, don't forget to come back and pick up some water to make sure that your application process is smooth, that your paint is nice and creamy. So go ahead and fill that out before we move on. Next, with that same brush, we're going to pick up some more of that black, and halfway down our circle towards our left, we're going to start to create a little arch. We're going to curve towards the left, and about 2 fingers before we reach the end, we're going to start to curve it down. Same thing in the bottom. We're going to go a little bit more than halfway towards the left, and we're going to make a line coming straight down and curving towards the left as well. So we're bringing both lines down, and we are connecting them both together in the bottom. We are going to leave a slight gap between this pad and our hoop. So we're not going to fully color it in. We are going to leave just a little bit of a gap there, but we are going to color in the rest of that. Okay, so fill it in, make sure you leave that little space there, and then we'll move on. Up next, again, using our square brush in black, we're going to create a little line arching over our wheel. It's going to be about the same distance that was left over beneath it. And from there, we're going to go straight up. So remember, it doesn't pass the little board that we put on the left. It stays right in the middle of those guidelines. And we start to fill in that fretboard. So we want to make it nice and thin. It is going to be a little bit towards the right. It's not going to cut into the left as much. And we're going to go in with some black and fill that in. So now we're picking up our round tip brush, and we're going to be using our color red. By now everything should be dry. With our red, we're going to add the little knobs beneath the little pad that holds the strings together. So our color will be a little bit of red. And we're going to remember to add a little bit of water to that. And we're going to come in and just start applying these little circles all the way down from the left towards the right in the bottom. Remember, each of these little circles is going to be holding a string. So that string is going to be going up towards the center of the fretboard. Remember, as many hoops that you're doing or dots that you're doing, that's how many strings you're going to be doing all the way up towards the fretboard. So we are going to be working on those strings, but right before we do that, we're going to come back and with our round tip pick up a little bit of that white and leave some highlights towards the left side of our little knobs just to add more dimension. Now we're going to wash off our brush. Again, we're coming in with a little bit of white, and we are going to make a white thick hoop around the center circle of our guitar. That's why we left those gaps there, just to let us know that we are going to be having a white line going around our half circle. We are also going to have a light brown line, but right now we're working on our white line. Next, we are going to be washing off the same brush, and like I mentioned before, we're going to be making a light brown. We're mixing some brown with a little bit of white, and we're going to add just a little tiny dot of black just to make it a bit gray. See that? So we're going to work that in. We're going to be going in around the white circle that we made there right before to add just the second level of dimension. Moving on, again, we're remembering to keep our paint nice and soft by picking up a little bit of water. And what we're going to do is we are going to add a slight highlight curving up from the bottom right hand corner towards the top of the left curvature side of our side panel there, or our little pad. So again, try to release your pressure. You press hard in the beginning. As you start to get to the corner, you really kind of just flick your brush to let the final hairs on your brush make that line thinner. Next, you go in there with a little bit of that black, straighten some of those lines up. I am using my detail brush for this. And you also need to make sure that you have a good amount of water so that your paint flows like ink. So I'm going in there, I'm straightening some lines out. I'm making my fretboard a little bit bigger. If you notice, my pad underneath that holds my strings is still very thin. So in order to have my strings look straight and even, I have to widen my fretboard a little bit more to match the bottom. So again, we're going to go in with our detail brush and straighten out any lines or anything that we might have thought still looks a little messy. Next, I am going to be working on the lines, so I'm going to be curving my canvas a little bit. We're using our detail brush to also straighten up our white lines. So we're going to go in, make sure we have enough water, and we're going to straighten some of those lines. And we are also going to use our brush and that angle to make a straight line from the bottom towards the top. Try not to curve your wrist. Try to keep your forearm nice and straight. And keep your paint nice and moist. Make sure you have plenty of water in there so it flows nice and smooth. You're going to start off at the bottom, pressing a little bit, and then releasing your pressure. Don't paint too hard, don't press too hard, and start to pull it all the way up towards the right. You want your line to be nice and straight towards the right. If it happens to look a little bit messier, that's fine. And we're bringing that line all the way up. We're going to continue to do this with all our strings. If you don't want your paint to finish, remember to pick up a little bit more water. That way your paint is a little bit smoother as you're running it across, and that way it lasts you all the way. If you see that you start to run out of paint, you can also squeeze your brush a little bit more against the canvas to push any excess paint that you might still have there. So we're going to continue to work on our strings from left to right. After we're done with this, you're going to pick up a little bit of water and we're going to come in and on the bottom right hand corner, write our signature. After this, you guys are done. Thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure to check out my website for more videos.